Howdy shipmates, it's Captain Dan here. Welcome to Story Time with Captain Dan, a time to share stories old and new with young and old, a time for shout outs and to lift our spirits in this time when we're all stuck at home during the coronavirus. So I'm telling tales each day, and today I'm going to share with you the story which is definitely not about Captain Dan. Captain Dan does not what this Mr. Man is. It's another Mr. Man story by Roger Hargreaves, and it's Mr. Clever. And my Captain Dan is not that clever, I can assure you. But hopefully he can tell a good tale, can't he? So here we go. Mr. Clever by Roger Hargreaves. Mr. Clever was quite the cleverest person ever. The cleverest person in the world. And he knew it. "Oh, I am so very, very clever," he used to say to himself more often than not. He lived in Cleverland, where, as you may know, everybody and everything is as clever as can be. In Cleverland, clever trees managed to grow apples and oranges at the same time. Whoa. In Cleverland, clever trees get up and go for a walk. And clever worms drive around in cars all day long. And clever elephants play tennis. Oh yes, Cleverland is quite the most clever place. Would you like to live there? Mr. Clever does. "Oh, I am so very, very clever to build such a clever house." He used to go around telling people all the time, look at his clever house. One morning, Mr. Clever was awakened by his special Mr. Clever alarm clock. Not only did it wake him up by ringing a bell, it also switched on a light and said, "Good morning," and made a cup of tea and showed what the weather was going to be and told you the time and showed you the date, and it also whistled cheerfully while it was doing all that. You know, all that's made me a bit thirsty. I think Captain Dan might have a big mouthful of tea. Could do all of that. A very clever clock indeed. Mr. Clever yawned, got up and washed and cleaned his teeth with his special Mr. Clever toothbrush, which squeaked toothpaste onto the brush and out of the handle, and he went downstairs for breakfast. He popped a slice of toast in his special Mr. Clever electric toaster, which not only toasted the bread, but also spreads it with butter and marmalade and cut off the crusts. After breakfast, he went for a long walk, an extremely long walk. In fact, such a long walk that he walked all the way out of Cleverland, although he didn't know it. Not that clever then, eh? He met somebody who was also out for a walk. Do you know who it was? Can you guess which Mr. Man that is? There's a hint there if you look at his mouth, I think, possibly. That's right, Mr. Happy. "Hello," cried Mr. Clever. "I am the cleverest person in the world." "Oh, good," said Mr. Happy. "Then you must be clever enough to make up a really good joke to tell me." He laughed. "Jokes make me happy," he explained. But Mr. Clever's face fell. "I don't know any jokes," he admitted. "Well, that's not very clever of you, is it?" said Mr. Happy, and he went off. And Mr. Clever went on. And you know who he next met? Can you guess who he next met? That's right, he met Mr. Greedy. "Hello," cried Mr. Clever. "I am the cleverest person in the world." "Oh, good," said Mr. Greedy. "Then you can tell me the recipe of the world's most delicious dish." Yeah, deluxe. "I like food," he explained. But Mr. Clever's face fell. "I can't cook," he explained, "and I don't know any recipes." "Well, that's not very clever of you, is it?" said Mr. Greedy, and he went off in search of food. Mr. Clever went on, and who do you think he met next? Yes, that's right, Mr. Forgetful. "Hello," cried Mr. Clever. "I am the cleverest person in the world." "Oh, good," said Mr. Forgetful. "Then you can tell me what my name is." He smiled apologetically. "I've forgotten, you see," he explained. But Mr. Clever's face fell for the third time that morning. "But I don't know your name," he admitted. "We've only just met." "Well, that's not very clever of you, is it?" said Mr. Forgetful. And he too went off, forgetting, of course, to say goodbye. And so it went on all day. Mr. Clever could not tell Mr. Sneeze the cure for a cold, and he couldn't tell Mr. Small how he could grow bigger, and he couldn't tell Mr. Jelly what the secret of being brave was, and he couldn't tell Mr. Topsy-Turvy how to talk the right way round. I mean the wrong way right round or right wrong way. It's a bit confusing, isn't it? Anyway, whatever he's meant to say, he couldn't do it. Not a very clever day at all. Not at all. Not one little bit. As by now he wasn't feeling anything like the cleverest person in the world, Mr. Clever decided he'd better go home. He passed a pair of worms who were having a chat. They do that, worms, you know. Just because you can't hear them doesn't mean they're not having a chat. You just don't have worm ears. You're not very clever, are you? "Who's that?" asked one of the worms. "That," replied the other worm, "is Mr. Clever, the cleverest person in the world on his way home to Clever Land." First worm thought for a bit. "Well, he can't be that clever," he replied. "He's going the wrong way." So that's another great tale from Roger Hargreaves from the Mr. Men collection of Mr. Clever. So that's enough for Captain Dan for today. I'm going to wish you all a good night. I'll try and get it right because I'm not that clever, despite the sunny weather. So I'm going to wish you all a good night. In my usual manner, would you like to lead or shall I? Here we go. Good night, oh sweet repose. Don't lie on your belly, because you might just squash your nose. Good night.